Hello, and welcome to Texas Laser Institute's very first podcast. We created this podcast as a great resource for our students embarking on their new exciting journey as an aesthetic professional. Today, our president, Robert Loeb, will be talking with our first guest, Wendy Polo. She is the founder of Rivada Med Spa, licensed laser hair removal professional, and esthetician. They will go over the interview process, what employers are looking for when hiring, and what goes into being an owner of a medical spa. Stay tuned.
That sounds great. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I know Keith has spoken so positively about his interactions with you over the years, and said that I know the perfect person to talk to you a little bit about medical aesthetics for an hour or so. And I'm greatly appreciative for your ability to join us today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. Well, I love Keith. I've known him about 24 or 25 years. So yeah, he's a great guy. He's always, when things change or like laws change, he'll call me up and he's like, hey, you need to do this, or hey, we stay in contact. So he's a great guy.
Cool. That's what he's for the school to do, for sure, and to help folks out where we can. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, how long have you been operating Rivada Medical Spa?
So we've had Rivada since 2016.
Okay, yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so we started in 2016.
Years, yeah.
Started small, so it's kind of like a boutique-ish type of med spa.
Sure.
I kind of want to keep it small, focus on quality, and we have 2 estheticians and 1 nurse.
Okay.
That does injectables.
Makes sense.
So, and then we have a location in Galleria and also in Argyle.
Okay, so 2 locations.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start your second location? How long after the first?
That one, actually, we just opened this summer.
Okay.
So we're actually inside our medical director's office.
Yeah.
So so he has had a space, and he asked me, so I'm like, you know what? I live down the road. So it's just really convenient, and being in with the doctor just is really helpful.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly for certainly the injectable procedures and some of the more medically inclined procedures. That's great.
Yeah.
So what got you into the business back in 2016?
So I had a client. I was working at the spa will have been years ago, and I had a client that was a nurse, and she was like, you need to open a place. Let's open a place. And she kind of put the bug in my head. I never wanted to have my own place. I knew how much work it was. I've been an office manager.
Yeah.
I've worked in all like administrative, as a technician. So I knew the type of work, and it really took a while for me to be like, you know what, let's try to do this. I think this will be good. So I feel like a lot of places are becoming more like franchises, kind of, and it's more of a, I feel like that personal touch, is kind of lacking in some places, where you want to partner up with your client. You want to give them that more personal touch. So that's kind of what I was kind of going for with Rivada.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. I think it's a fair statement. We certainly observed, I think, over the years, where as folks get more into this franchise model or continue to grow, that they inherently have to put into place more procedure and protocol to make greater uniformity across all the various locations. And as soon as you do that, you start to take away, for better or worse, discretion of the provider to make sure that
customization. Yeah.
And so I think the simplicity of doing that is appealing, because you think you can keep people very safe and no one will stray away from the line and cause any type of complication or new type of scenario that you don't really want to deal with as an owner. But at the same time, you don't get that same type of customization that you can find at a boutique, potentially med spa, where you do have a little bit more autonomy and discretion from the provider as to exactly what they can do and balancing the safety and efficacy of a treatment. So that's certainly, I think, a shared perspective.
Yeah, and definitely, because technicians or estheticians, they have different levels of experience. So not all of them will be able to do and customize and mix different modalities together. And I think just a lot of places, we're kind of in a world where everybody wants to scale, and that's tough to do. You have to do it very safely.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in this type of industry, it's not it's not the easiest of scalable businesses for sure.
Yeah.
There's anytime you're causing a controlled damage, if you will, to someone's skin, or fat or tattoo, or injecting neurotoxin to paralyze muscle, you're causing essentially a controlled amount of damage to someone's appearance in hopes that it will rejuvenate and become aesthetically better than what it once was before coming in to see us. And I think it's not like serving kebabs, or
No,
or
not
coffee.
like Chipotle. Offer 4 types of protein and
Here's what kind of salsa do you want? And like you alluded to too, every technician, every esthetician, they have their own type of philosophy, for better or worse. And it's not necessarily a right way of doing things as much as just sometimes a better way, but not necessarily the right way. You have to make it your own. And I think that personalization, that special touch probably resonates well with a lot of clients when they go and find that provider that they just absolutely love. So it suits them really well. But at the same time too, that's a very hard thing to put into a procedure and make every rush, 15 locations do the exact same thing.
It is. I worked with a massage therapist once that, we had a lot of massage therapists at this one location, and they would almost get really offended if a client would switch up, service providers. And one thing my friend told me, she's like, it's like ice cream, different flavors. We all have different styles. So you can't get, hurt that they're not going to, sometimes you jive better with different people. People like different styles. So, it's like different company cultures. You can feel that when you walk in.
Now, do you get a sense that some of your estheticians are just as much of I don't want to use the word therapist, but certainly that confidant, that listens to the stories of your guests? So the treatment experience goes far beyond the application of a chemical agent.
Definitely. And I was talking to one of my estheticians last week about that. Where there's days where it's draining, and depending on your client, sometimes you have clients that need more from you. Sure. And I mean, they're getting a deal because some of them really need to they tell you so much of all the hard things they're going through it can get really heavy. But one thing I think about our group is we kind of dig into a lot of self-help books, and we're into that kind of thing. So, you kind of learn how to navigate certain conversations when they get kind of heavy, because you almost have to learn how to separate that to go home, because it gets heavy. It
does. You have to be able to disconnect for sure. And that's a skill unto itself. But I tell you, it's unique that your staff, your team really formulates these practice concepts in amongst themselves to, I think, better assist the guest experience. Talk to me a little bit about that. Do you, as the owner of the medical spa, suggest certain books, or
I do. I actually do. So I'm always listening to podcasts and books. So they kind of joke around. They're like, "Oh, what are you listening to right now?" Because I'll come in, I'm like, "Look, this is great," and I listen to like a lot of Stephen R. Covey kind of stuff, management books, but they have a lot of psychology behind it. And so a lot of these things you can apply to just personal relations. And and I always talk to them about, like, if we work better together, people will feel that, if there's tension in our home, because this is our second home, people will feel that. So whenever we improve, and we're learning to, a lot of Brene Brown books too. Okay. So whenever we talk about vulnerability and all those kind of things, and we don't really have like sit down where it gets super serious about, doing self-help kind of things, but just in conversation, it's really important to us. And I think as an owner, for me, it's really important to listen to what everyone from front desk to technicians, service providers, what is going on. And because if they can tell me, I have a better sense of what clients are feeling, what what is happening, you know? So I've worked in a lot of places where I was the administrator, and sometimes we wouldn't get listened to, or it wasn't a job that was important. So I try to make it's, you know, it's hard sometimes to listen, but, you know, I think nowadays we really need to slow down and actually open our ears
Sure.
and actually listen, and not try to like guess, or, you know, just talk over people. So that's just something we try to do.
It takes time for sure. It's a great skill to
Yeah.
master, right? And then you have to
Yeah,
be a
definitely.
individual, a very self-serving, or a very serving individual to that of others. Absolutely. Any particular management golden nuggets that you've come across recently that you think have helped?
Oh my gosh. So one thing, I'm trying to think what there is. I think it's a Stephen R. Covey. Humble leaders are more concerned with doing the right thing and not being right. You know, I know it's something like that.
No,
So I think that is really, I think, something that kind of stuck to me. That, and making it safe for people to be honest. You know, because sometimes people don't want to, you know, talk because they're like, oh, you know, it might go down wrong.
Understood. Yeah, the fear of
Yeah.
reprisal. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost. There's a famous hedge fund investor. His name is Ray Dalio. He began this hedge fund called Bridgewater up in Connecticut, but he's written this book called Principles, and it really revolves around this incredible degree of transparency. So the notion is that your team will know each other so intimately well that they'll know each other's weaknesses, each other's strengths. And
Right.
the notion is that there aren't these types of professional secrets that would otherwise, I guess, infringe upon the ease of communication and the willingness to really be transparent in likewise fashion, going to create, I think, a better, not adversarial process, but certainly a process where different ideas can be challenged. And in the challenging of those ideas, the reality of what actually is the right solution can be discovered. And it's worked really well for him. You know, not all organizations, I think, want to operate to that degree of transparency on an individual basis and then collectively. But for his company, it's worked out tremendously well. And I think you've alluded to trying to adopt that type of practice, which we do here as well. And it's worked out really well for us. You know, and it makes the critiquing of the treatment process a bit easier too.
Yeah, when people are open to critiquing, listening to, you know, maybe where they can improve.
Oh, yes.
Or coming to each other and saying like, hey, I'm doing this. What do you think? You know, because sometimes if we have a client that maybe is a different case, you know, or maybe there's different ways we could treat them, you know, we'll come together and say like, hey, what do you think about you know, I'm just thinking about how I'm going to, what the treatment plan is for this person. And, and it's, nobody is like a know-it-all, or nobody knows everything, kind of, you know, we kind of avoid that. And it's like, okay, this is how I would do it. But there are different approaches. And, you know, talking about like what you were just saying, sometimes knowing people's weaknesses, sometimes, you know, like maybe what triggers them, because sometimes people will become defensive when, you know, and you're wondering why. But if you know what's triggering them, sometimes you can solve problems so much faster. And, you know, there's not this craziness going on in the office. So, you know, it's nice.
Oh, yes. Anything to do to keep the office strumming down just a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
It's a long way, I think, for sure.
A little bit of orange essential oil sometimes helps, but I don't think it's strong enough.
Sure. No, very, very neat, right? So, and that goes right into the traits of the people that you look for when doing your hiring, I imagine, right?
Yeah, that is really hard.
What are the key things that you've looked for over the years?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, the dream people to find are people that are willing to wear a lot of hats.
Yes, that's small business at its finest.
You know, small business. You know, I mean, sometimes we do things, it's like, I didn't know that was on my list of things to do, but people that are just team players, willing to learn and just grow, and sometimes also be able to pivot. You know, after the COVID, the word pivot is everywhere, but it's true. Like sometimes you have to switch up things, and if it's really hard, to go. And change is hard, but you have to be able to change protocols or change processes. And people get really stuck in their ways and it freaks them out. So finding people that, you know, I mean, it's really hard. I think the interview process and asking the right questions, I'm still kind of learning, you know, what are the ideal questions. I think this is something like, I mean, this could be the total topic of a whole hour, is like, what are the perfect questions to ask
during an interview
in
process?
an interview process?
Absolutely. Oh, we could definitely talk about that for an hour.
Yeah, I think you need an episode for that.
That's not hard to do at all. Anything that you found over the years? Do you do like a working interview? Do you check a lot of references? Do you just
I think references, I love getting referrals, because
Sure.
then you kind of have an idea of, you know, if you know somebody, those, but you know, that doesn't always work either, because I know I've had experiences where
you get referrals and you're just like, they're great. Yeah.
yeah, I thought you're great, and
Yeah.
now you're stealing from me.
Yeah, I don't want you to sue me later, so it's all.
I know.
Sure.
Gosh, sometimes the working, but you know what? Really working with someone is the only way, because you don't know. It's kind of when you're dating someone, you don't really know, and maybe a year down the road, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
It takes a while, and people
Surprise.
do involved. Yeah. Here comes a whole other side I hadn't seen before. But yeah, like you said, you look for certain key attributes from the outset. I think the willingness to sort of be receptive to both constructive feedback and change is really good. I think if you have that one individual that's super headstrong and it might be a very competent provider, but they're really headstrong and you can't really get them to change or like a different perspective, it creates, I think, a weird dynamic in the office, because people like the confidence that the individual has, so they kind of go to them for questions, but then it's hard to kind of continue to advance as an organization because you're kind of stuck to what their perceived level of expertise is.
If they only want to do something a certain way, and that's, you know, that's hard. Really, it's a hard personality to work with.
Yeah, sure.
I think in this industry too, there's a lot of people that they get, I guess, insecure of what they know, you know, and maybe they're, I mean, I worked places where, you know, different therapists, you know, you want to be the best esthetician, or you say like, I'm the lead esthetician. And if your client goes somewhere else, you're like, oh, you know, you're stealing my client, or, you know, I feel like that mindset is just, I think, you know, for example, I work somewhere where, let's say someone went out of town, I would take care of their clients, and it would be, you know, I would respect like kind of like what their style was. I would look at the treatment notes. I'm like, hey, do you do anything special on, you know, your people? But I wouldn't try to like keep them, because I know this person normally goes to that one. So I think there's like, you have that respect with your coworkers, that you're not going to just, and so I find that, you know, in some places you have that competition, and sometimes that can be hard. Instead of working together, they're competing.
Yes. Now, how do you feel like commission or the compensation incentive structure might either promote that or perhaps not, or try to maybe perhaps keep that from occurring?
Yeah. I think it, yeah, I mean, it could go both ways. I think a lot of times I do commission by skill level, you know, if I'm doing a lot more training, because I really like, I mean, I'll give them everything, you know, I will train, but it's hard because I think sometimes, you know, naturally as humans, I think people want more. And so if, you know, they feel better if maybe their books are more full than the other one, or, you know, the other technician. You know, so that's a kind of a hard one. I think, you know, setting in place meetings to where you have like team building things where everyone kind of helps to gel together. But I think whoever's leading needs to kind of set the tone of, we're not going to have this animosity or this competition thing. We're going to kind of root for everybody. So yeah, it can be tricky. I think it's just really tricky.
Yeah, the compensation scheme, it's yeah, it seems that you have to be very careful. And then the term, you know, no good deed goes unpunished, can very quickly haunt you. You create a nice compensation scheme that incentivizes, either meeting financial goals or a certain satisfaction with your clientele. And very quickly you come to discover that same financial incentive promotes this internal competition that's not in the direction in which you wish to take the company. People are trying to steal a client from each other, or, oh, I already hit my commission for the month, so how about you take this client back, and then that way you can hit your commission for the month too. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't see that happening, like, all right. So it can get a little tricky on the compensation scheme for sure, and really how you want to promote the right type of behaviors for the common good of the company.
Yeah.
And
you want the ones that are doing, like, really going the extra mile and working hard to get, compensated for their hard work.
Oh, yes, sure.
So it's tricky, to know how, and I don't know, there's so many ways to compensate and so many ways to switch it up that can get difficult.
Anything in particular that you found that actually does work pretty well on the compensation side for creating the right incentives?
I do a lot of the commission. I think, we have a membership program. So we do, if you sign someone up, so there are incentives. And, there's other things I would like to do kind of a tiered deal, but little by little, as we grow, I'm trying to see what works. So I'm still kind of in the learning phase of that one.
The experimental process.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop, as soon as you get right.
I think it changes. I think paying your people well enough, for their skills, you want to hold good talent. You want to hold people that have really good skills, because I think our clients feel that, the quality of their treatment, because we customize quite a bit.
Oh, yes.
I always tell my estheticians, I'm like, I've worked places where, you have someone come in and you can almost feel when that esthetician just wants to do a chemical peel or something fast or something that costs more just because of those reasons. Yes. And it's like, you really want to kind of stay focused on, I want to do what's best for them, not what's best for me, or convenient. And so I think it's the leadership too that, you have to work on. I think that goes well with the compensation. I think all those pieces need to kind of come together.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's very much a cohesive package for sure. And then changing compensation once it's set and established, it's always easier to add more to it and impossible to take it away. So
right.
It's almost very slow, methodical baby steps.
Yes,
and kind
for
of
sure.
The experiment play out in some regards until you can kind of get it just right. But I think it goes back to, like you were alluding to earlier, where you're just trying to find really the right people. If you have the individual that is amenable to some change and has a growth-oriented mindset and keeps the organization as a whole within the right perspective, some that gets a bit easier too. So you get back to the interviewing process. Any key things that you're looking for, questions that you're asking people to try to root out folks that don't necessarily fit?
Gosh, I think I put like little scenarios of, what if, like, what would you do in this case? Or I think a big thing is, how do you work with others? What are your values? Really, and it's not like a one interview process. I really like to really interview and spend some time talking to this person. I like to really kind of get them relaxed and really see who they are. Because I just feel like, when you have heart, I think that is is when you really love what you do, but love people, because we're working with people. And your energy, if you kind of have a negative mindset, or if you really have to, sometimes with clients, turn their, like if they're going to a dark place or if they're going to a negative place, it's like you bring them back a little bit. Yeah. I think too, people, when I interview, it's, I really stress, it's about the client. So a lot of times I've seen this happen where, technicians will almost feel like their client is their best friend. And in many cases, you might meet someone that becomes someone that's close or a friend. But in a lot of cases, it's like, you know what, they're coming for a procedure. It's about them. Let's not
Yes.
talk about our personal lives and make it a therapy session for yourself.
No,
So
exactly right. I don't think you have a client for very long if somebody were to be doing that.
yeah, so I've seen that, and I think that's, kind of interviewing somebody for maybe several sessions and really maybe having um, a time where they can come in and actually do a treatment on me or meet the other staff just to
Oh, yes.
kind of see how everybody gels. I think in a case like that, it's, depending how far in the process it is, it could be something where they're compensated. I've heard of people, I've talked to estheticians where maybe they've worked somewhere for actually quite a while. Like they have a long uh, interview process and they're actually almost working there and no compensation, which I don't think is right.
Yeah, it might not even be illegal, but
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it many, many times. And I feel bad for the person. They're like, I really want this job. And I've been working, doing treatments because they want to see how I work. But, I don't have a position. I'm like, maybe that's a flag for you.
yeah, no, exactly right. If they're looking for free labor of sorts and generating this revenue off of your expertise, then yeah,
Yeah.
an employer is probably the way to be going at that point. But we love our working interviews. So we'll do a compensated working interview where obviously, yeah, they get to meet us just as much as we get to meet them in the
Right.
context of a typical day. And we do a half day, 4 hours. It's compensated for
Yeah.
4 hours. And we're always looking for several key characteristics. Is someone just kind of sitting there and do they kind of just get deer in the headlights frozen? Or is this person taking some initiative and just saying hi
Mm-hmm.
to clients that are coming in? Or hey, let me jump back in the treatment room with you and help you turn around a room. Or show me what
Right.
you're doing with the scheduling system, just asking some questions and being present. I think that makes a huge difference. Folks that might just want to hang tight and be told what to do is an individual to me that needs to be actively managed. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It just, I know for our organization, it doesn't work well
Right.
for our
And that's a
students.
different management style for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to be, as like a Ray Dalio might say, super transparent with who we are, our corporate culture,
Right.
the way that we speak to our guests, the way that we speak to each other, what we joke about, what we never say, the sense of privacy and discretion that has to be exercised at all times. Yeah, does somebody fit into that type of mold and this kind of considerations?
Exactly.
And like you alluded to earlier, you don't really know until, quite some time,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, I love it when I see someone that's proactive or going that extra mile. I mean, I'm like, wow, and I mean, people are
Rare.
gold. It's rare nowadays. I mean, a lot
It's
of times
rare.
I'm like, if someone is, I mean, I've seen people where on their off hours they're learning like an admin, learning skills that would help her do her job better. But you know what? I didn't ask her to, and it's like, oh my gosh, that is what I love. I like, I love
Yes.
that because they want to grow, and you know what? They'll be able to do more and make more in the future if they're more valuable. And I think that is, you know, great advice for maybe people that are new to the business is if you want to be an esthetician, maybe you could be an admin, get your foot in the door and learn how the business runs and do a little bit of everything. And, I think that's a really great way, especially because there's so much competition, so many people wanting certain jobs at places. Sometimes being an assistant, being, receptionist or doing, consulting, things like that, getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, that's great advice for our students, particularly many of which are they graduate and they're seeking a position for the very first time. And if we were to have a discussion, a podcast about what our employers really looking for, how to kind of get that leg in the door and make yourself stand out a little bit, someone that takes that initiative
Mm-hmm.
goes a long way for sure. Goes a super long
Oh,
way.
definitely.
other things that folks have done that have really made you say, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting this, but I might really have an individual here that I can invest further into and help grow?
I've had an admin once. She was an esthetician, and I was like, look, this is all I can offer. But she had a lot of office skills, and she was really great. And she started then part-time, filling in. But because she was, like you said, she would just, pick up and clean up, turn around rooms, assist the other estheticians. And I just saw, what a team player she was. So, when you see that, then you're like, okay, you're valuable.
Oh, yeah. And what did what did the team think about her as well, her colleagues?
They like that,
Right?
because if they're like that, she's helping, you do have to be, when you have someone that's an admin that's going into the aesthetic, starting to take clients, you almost have to you have to really be careful of being fair to the other estheticians. So, that was almost like, once, their books were full, then, hey, she can come in and help out. And that was very beneficial to the business.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's almost something that doesn't really fit the culture. It can be a real small hole in a real big boat, and it will gradually just sink it, right? So it's one of those things where if you have someone that fits in well, takes initiative, and the rest of the team really appreciates the extra effort and the sense of presence and initiative.
Yeah.
It seems also that that team that is experienced and has a lot of knowledge to pass down is a lot more willing to do so. And
definitely.
and
When people feel appreciated,
oh yeah,
they're willing to do things. Yeah,
oh,
I think, and it's kind of like, the love languages or things like that. You can kind of relate to, like, some people need to feel appreciated, and I find, we have one esthetician, and we'll talk about it. She's like, I need to know that I'm doing well, and so, a lot of times if I see that, she did something, she's not supposed to, or she doesn't really need to, I'm like, hey, I saw that. I appreciate it. And it goes a long way. It sounds silly, but I mean, it goes a long way.
It's been shown that appreciation is actually a more important factor to a lot of people than the actual compensation.
Yep.
So it goes a long, long way in keeping.
Yeah, quality of your work life. You're working with people, so many hours in a day. You want to go to a job where you enjoy who you work with, where you feel great, instead of going somewhere where, everyone's defensive or in a bad mood. That can really change your quality of life.
100%. Yeah.
And your health. I mean, my gosh.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you go to work every day and you're ridden with anxiety, maybe a little bit of sadness or depression, and you just dredge it, and you can't wait till that clock to hit, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So
Yeah, that can give you some neck pain and some other issues.
Absolutely. That is no way to go through life at all. So yeah, it's important for folks that are looking for a good position to be interviewing the employer just as much as they're interviewing you. What are things that folks are asking you during the interview process that you'd like to hear? And what are the things that you don't want to hear right off the bat?
Oh, so I love to hear, where they're eager to know about the services. They're eager to learn. If, someone that's open to learning is great. If someone sounds like they know everything, and I've had this too before where, I would ask, what lasers have you worked on? And the answer is, oh, all of them. Well, I've been doing, in this industry 25 years. I don't know all of them. Be specific. What do you know? Like, for example, if you're coming in to interview with me, it's not so much, I'm more concerned about your values, how you work with others. Skilled, yes. Do you know how to work on this with this technology or this type of treatment or these type of mechanical exfoliation? I can teach you a lot of things. We can train you with a lot of things, but we can't teach you to have heart, to these other things. But when you respond, oh, I've done all chemical peels, and then it's like, it tells me, I'm like, okay, maybe they don't know the specific types. Maybe they don't know. And it's like, you want someone that can be honest about where they're at with their skills, instead of trying to, to a point, you do want to fake it till you make it in business, but, we're working with chemicals, lasers, really, things that can hurt people. We need to know where you're at. So I value more their values, and, things that I can't train somebody, that I think that's important. I've had people where I'm even in the training process, and then they start telling me that, they really want to open their own business.
Yeah, how's
And
that across to you?
and I'm like, that's really great, but I'm training you. Like, I'm giving you all that I know, and I'm spending hours. I mean, there was one time I spent 7 hours with someone because I was getting her ready. And then she told me she was going to start training some other people on how to do this. And I'm like, hold up, this isn't going to work. Your mind's not going to be here, and I'm not going to, I need someone that's a team player that, wants to work here for all of us to succeed. And so, maybe if your dreams are to have a big business, start a business soon, you don't want to tell somebody that's going to employ you that, you want to open something next week.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I want you to train me, and then I want to leave you and go start my own thing to compete across the street from you.
Yeah. I mean, I had someone tell me they were like, yeah, and this was an employee. They were like, yeah, one day I want to have my own beauty empire. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I thought you wanted to, like, work on my team. Like, I thought you wanted to, hey, be here. And, and I'm, when people tell me these things, I'm very straight faced, and I'll, I'm like, okay, but if, you know what? I heard you. I heard, you're not here. Your heart's not here.
And you have to put a lot of trust and confidence in that person when they go into that treatment room with your customer.
Right. You don't want them to say, like, hey, meet me at my other salon or spa.
Yeah, I'm doing this weekend. I'm off here, and come on down. We'll take great care of you there at a lower price. Or they
and so
here, like, what? Why?
Honesty, integrity, big things for me.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. So definitely when if one of our students or graduates goes and they're interviewing for a position, telling the prospective employer that, hey, I'm looking to start my own business soon is certainly on the top of the please don't mention list of things to do.
Yeah.
That's certainly that kills the interview for us in about 2 minutes. We kind of stop it right then and there. And
Yeah.
then oh shoot, in kind of related to that, we had a wonderful sweet lady come in the other day and interviewing for a position with us. And so, where are you currently at? All right, we started this new job a couple weeks ago, got it. So why are you looking to switch so soon? Well, my father says, no, always keep a window open so you can see what other opportunities there are out there. All right, well, do you like your current employer? Oh yeah, they're great to me. We're learning a lot. So why aren't you staying with them again? They seem like they're investing a lot in your training. Oh, no, I just want to see what else is out there. Like, well, you do understand if we bring you on board, I would have the same worry then, that you'd always have a foot out the door looking for something else. And we have to invest a lot in your training.
It's a lot of investment.
I think I'd rather invest in someone that is willing to be here for a little bit, and isn't looking for something else right down the street necessarily. But yeah. And for whatever reason you want to make the switch. So yeah, definitely another thing not to tell employers. Anything else that comes to mind that you've heard over the years? Yes.
I mean, I love when, I think too, as an employer, you want to attract, good talent, or, people with integrity and good values. So, I also have to kind of, when it's that person where I'm like, well, you know what, they're gold, or they're a gem, or they're genuine, like when you find someone that's really genuine, you almost have to, because there's people that, they could get a job, they have it. And so you almost kind of have it, sell it to them too, like, this is our culture, do you want to be a part of this?
Oh, yes.
And So, because I mean, I just love our place. I think we have, such a, there's carefree. I mean, hey, you got to get, work done, but we have a good time. So, I think attracting, you have to have a, something to attract that, those type of people that,
Oh
you're
yeah,
looking for.
and to keep them energized. What
Definitely.
what do you think about if a prospective staff member comes and during the interview process, asks top question, how much do you pay? How does an employer typically respond to
So
that?
I first kind of try to see where their skills are at, you know, that, I mean, because that's a really tricky one. Because I know, so many places pay hourly. Sometimes there's a combination, and I also try to see what they value, because some people value, they like the straight commission because they have a possibility of making more. But then, and then their hourly might be a lot less, but they like that challenge, and they also, I mean, they can do it because they're just really great at what they do. But
Yeah,
then
it's
there's some
exciting.
people, they like the security of the hourly. So it's like finding what they value too is really important. Their hours, what hours are they willing to work, the skills. So, sometimes it's just, that's a really hard one because I don't answer that like on a phone call.
Yeah,
Sometimes at the first interview, I don't either. I kind of try to get a sense of, because if I have to do a lot of training, then their pay is going to be a little different. But you know what? I feel like they're going to get value, and, like years ago. So this is a story, like when I had my cosmetology license, so I got my cosmetology license. I'm not an esthetician. I have a cosmetology license.
what's your
I
last
got it in
name?
high,
Yeah,
I got it in high school, and I had no interest in hair. I have the same hairdo from high school. And so,
I think two of us.
yeah, I mean, same. Like I look the same. And I got out of school. I got 2 jobs at some like franchise hair places, and I would quit the day before because I was like, I
Not,
can't cut hair. I don't know how to cut hair. Like, I mean, I know how to pass the test, the state test. And so I would call, and then I thought, well, maybe skincare. Maybe I'll dig skincare. So I went to the Long Beach show. I think it's like the International Congress of Aesthetics.
yes, okay.
Les Nouvelle, Les Nouvelle.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so I was like, you know what? This is my jam. I think I can get into this. And I got a job at a spa, and I quit the day before too because they did not do, they didn't even know if I could do a facial. I did not know how to do a facial because in cosmetology, you learn maybe a couple of days.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You don't know anything. And I'm like, how am I going to do a facial on somebody? This is ridiculous. So then I started calling around, and I called Rhonda Allison because she was in Dallas, and I called her up, and I'm like, I will intern with you. I didn't expect her to pay me very much. And I just told her, I was like, I'm great with computers. I can digitize everything because everything was in paper like in 1996. So like, so I just went in, helped her out. And every
Great.
Tuesday she would train me. Like Rhonda Allison, she's a big deal. She's an amazing esthetician. She has an amazing line. I mean, but her work ethic was so beautiful. Like she would get to work, prepare her day. Every Tuesday was training. I would do a treatment on her. She would do a treatment on me. She would talk about chemical peels. I assisted her in training. I learned so much, but I wasn't paid a lot. And in the beginning, because I worked for her for a couple of years, and I just, sometimes pay is not the most important, It's like I saw the value of I'm working with this amazing esthetician, and she's given me a lot. So, sometimes, if you're getting trained, that might compensate some.
No, yeah, it's a great perspective. So if you're a prospective employee looking for your first foray into aesthetics, maybe finding an employer that really focuses on some training aspect and your continued
Right.
professional growth might outweigh another dollar an hour of compensation, or
Exactly. And then, once you get to the point where you are of value, where your books are full, you convert consultations, your people are coming back, your rebooking percentage is really high. You can come into your boss, show that, and say, like, look at my percentages, look at my conversion rate. If someone comes to me, you don't want to lose them. If they're awesome at what they do, I'll be like, hey, you know what? You do deserve a raise.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers and you're like, okay, I can't afford to lose this person. So, if you make yourself valuable, if you do a lot of things, if you deliver, then, you have job security, but then also you can ask for that raise that you think you deserve.
Yeah, particularly when you can substantiate it with specifics and look at these numbers, look at this close rate, look at the revenue functionality. I think when folks come and it's more generalized, like, I've mastered all of our treatments. Like, what does that really mean that you've mastered all of our treatments, right? Like, you haven't done half these treatments in the last 2 or 3 months. And so if you're going to go ask for that raise, really do so, but do so knowing that you have some good financial wherewithal about a justification and why that, and make that value a little bit more tangible for your employer, which makes a lot of sense. Very, very cool. Yeah, so that's on the hiring front. Now, how about the training front? So when folks come into the clinic, is there a formalized training program, or is it more of a shadowing, hand-holding, watch one, essentially watch one, do one, and
yeah, so we do a combination. I think in the beginning we have them come in and we'll set out time, and so depending on typically I will train them. Sometimes another esthetician will also, like, later on, but I kind of set the foundation of how we do things, and I try to see, like, where their skill level's at. So if they don't have a lot of experience, maybe they won't be doing certain types of lasers or certain types of, like, microneedling or deep peels. Maybe they start off with more of the safer treatments. Just depends what their skill level is. But then we start training them, and they'll do treatments on us, or we'll bring models in. Maybe we'll have friends or people we know, bring them in, and we'll give them feedback. So what's important is, telling them, hey, you know what, let's do this or do that. And then they can kind of shadow, but, like, they'll kind of start slowly. So then we'll start booking them appointments, but we'll typically start them off with the more, like basic skin rejuvenation or a facial or, microdermabrasion, things that we know they know inside out. Then we'll kind of start them off that way and see how they do. And we're like, okay. And so this is what I've done with my other estheticians too, is like deeper peels. It's like I train them, but I'm like, do you understand it? Do you understand how it's working? Also, do you understand why you need to be cautious and what could happen if it goes the wrong way? So
how to recognize that. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important for folks to certainly understand and appreciate the inherent dangers. We've always found that there's, if you have to do some generalizations, you could have one where folks are a little bit more mechanically inclined, or they're very creative. And I feel like folks that are, like, super creative are really good in day spa, facial, where they can kind of experiment a little bit. It's more of an artistry and kind of a craftsmanship of what they're doing. And then you have folks that are more mechanically inclined, that here's a particular tool, a high power laser system. I need you to follow essentially a protocol procedure with a very deep conceptual understanding as to how this thing operates, so that you can maximize safety and effectiveness with this particular device. And those, again, that are more mechanically inclined seem to do really well at that, whereas folks that are, again, more creative seem to do a little bit better at the day spa kind of.
Definitely. I've seen that with chemical peels and lasers where people get too creative.
Yes.
Or they love to be aggressive, like, because it's fun.
But
like, so I've always, and I find this with estheticians that have a lot of experience. you know, and it's funny because sometimes they'll be like, oh, you have this many years. I'm like, I don't know anything still, you know, like things change, technology changes. You have to respect these acids. You have to respect these lasers. And when people get cocky and they're just like, oh, I know I don't have to go to this training and I've heard everything. I'm like, you will always learn something, you know, even if it's microdermabrasion and you've been doing it 20 years, you're going to learn maybe a technique or something new that came out. Maybe they've done some new studies on something and, you know, you didn't know, but, you know, you have to respect that. And even with so much experience, I've seen estheticians with a lot of experience work on a machine that maybe is calibrated a little different from the one that they're used to. And it's the same company, like same machine, just calibrations off a little different.
Sure.
They doing the same setting, but they burn someone. And it's like, you know, you got to respect it and you got to really be focused.
100%. And we've seen that in some of our students. We've trained clinics before where they have 3 or 4 of the same brand of laser systems in 4 different treatment rooms. And one system is up 10, 20%. The other one's down 10 or 20%. One's spot on perfect. And it explains why in some rooms, like, oh, that's the hot room. That's where people get burned. And that's the room that people aren't getting treated well. And that room works great. Like, oh my gosh, right? And I'll say the FDA allows a 20% divergence of the average of the power output that's coming from the handpiece of laser. So it might even be within the law. You know, they might certainly be calibrated within the range in which FDA requires, but that's a huge range when you're dealing with perhaps an Alexandrite laser system, for instance, and your margin of error is just one or 2 joules, if that. You know, so it's very.
So it's like start out lower. You know, if you're working on a new machine or a different, you know, machine, you know, start lower to get to know that how that one's calibrated. And even skin types, you know, some people might be using a 30% TCA and they think they can do the same on everyone. Everyone has different thickness, you know, they'll penetrate differently. And you gotta, you know, get to know that person's skin or that machine and really just respect all of that, but always get training. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, gosh, I love going to, you know, training, manufacturers training, even if it's product knowledge, like
why not?
You will retain something new. And I try to have that attitude of, you know what, I'm going to learn something. And I did call, you know, I went to a training with someone once. This is a story where, you know, they kind of had a bad attitude about it. And they were like, I already know everything. Like this, there's nothing new. This is so boring. And I'm like, I took them out and I'm like, I will never take you to a training with that kind of attitude. You know, they're putting this on, like, you know, respect the people around you, but also you're going to learn something, but with that attitude, you won't learn anything.
Exactly right. That's a real disservice to your clients. But
yeah.
Do you find that you're taking folks to conferences and manufactured sponsored events as a source of valuable training, or do you rely on them to try to perhaps source some of that for themselves?
So we do both. So I love it when they take initiative, you know, but I think as a company, I think it's important to plan trainings. And so, you know, when manufacturers, like if we carry a certain line and they have a training, even if it's paid, you know, we try to plan it. Maybe we don't go to all of them, but even their online trainings, or if there's one coming to town, or, you know, we see something valuable like a microneedling training, or I know y'all do everything. I've referred a lot of people to you guys because I talk to a lot of estheticians, you know, new estheticians. And, you know, it's just, even if you know something, I think it's valuable for the team to always, because I think it almost rejuvenates them and it gets them excited and inspired and kind of freshens up their skills. Because sometimes things get kind of boring, you know, like if you're doing microdermabrasion, you know, some people are like, oh, that's like, you know, $19.99 or whatever. No, I mean, it's a great staple, you know. I think it's so valuable. But there's always something new you can learn. And And I think, a lot of companies, spas or owners, I don't see that they do that, because the places I've worked, that wasn't really valued as much. And I find that, it's your employees will grow
Are
when
stimulated.
they're learning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Like you said, there's a little bit of a monotony, right? If you're doing the same procedures day
Yeah.
in, day out, and if you can break that up and get them interacting with other professionals in the industry that are just as excited, uh, and they got their hands on something a little bit different or new or some different ideas, it certainly kind of keeps the engagement a little bit higher for sure in the
Yeah,
clinic.
definitely.
And the clients get to experience that excitement as well, which is a fantastic
Yeah, because
thing.
then you talk about it, and they appreciate that that's valued, that you're bringing in like the latest information, latest training.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great thing for the clinic as a whole. Not bad. Are you finding that it's any unique challenges of trying to get that mindset shared between two different locations? Or are you able to assimilate them pretty easily?
So right now I'm kind of split in two places. So I
Yeah,
half of the week I'm in Dallas and half of the week in Argyle. So that can be hard, because culture, we're split a little bit, but I'm spending a little bit more time, I think, in Argyle, trying to put the foundation there.
build a team.
And definitely, because it's so new, like we've just started out there planning, kind of team building things where we get together.
Sure.
And with time, that's hard nowadays. And especially, people can't just be hanging out. With COVID, everyone's trying to take care of everybody, because you know we do see people. So I guess it's not going to be as often as we'd like, but we're trying to get a schedule, and maybe we might have to do some Zoom meetings.
Yeah, keep that coherence, the
Yeah.
consistency, and that sense of larger company. I feel like folks, when they're a part of a company that's growing, hey, we have two locations. Yeah, that by itself also creates a little bit of excitement in the team as well, which was unexpected for us when we were growing our medical spa.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's like, here we go. Let's do another second location, and you do it because you want to serve your guests as best as you can. You see them coming from a particular area, and
Right.
let's come to you. We don't want you to have to come all the way down here to us. And then it's like, oh gosh, we're doubling up our responsibilities. Another lease agreement, the inherent issues that you have with leases, leaky this, broken that, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And you have this downside. But then we found over the phone and as we're hiring, oh wow, yeah, we have two locations. And two becomes three. If you decide to continue to grow, three becomes four, four becomes five, and then you're like, and folks that work with your organization seem to really appreciate that growth. At the same time, though, they don't have to deal with the same type of headaches of the
Right.
HVAC
And
system.
I do think maybe each one might have like a slightly different feel, just depending on who's working there.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
then, having that foundation of your culture, you kind of have to really put that in there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's hard to do across multiple locations sometimes.
Mhm.
But not bad. Well, Wendy, I tell you what, that's a whole hour. I don't want to take up any more of your
Oh
time,
my
but
gosh. Well, that was fun.
it's awesome. We talked about some great things. I love the interview process. I think our students are really going to benefit from some
Definitely.
tips and tricks for interviewing. And then I think your shared perspective of what to really value in an employment possibility, particularly looking for an employer that is wanting to train, takes a lot of personal pride in training, a lot of hand-holding, a one-on-one with either the owner or definitely the spa manager is a great opportunity, and maybe to place a little more emphasis on that than just the direct compensation rate from the get-go. I think this is going to
Yeah.
help people a lot in answering, or at least asking the right questions when doing an interview for sure. So
Yeah.
that's
I'm
fantastic.
excited to hear more people sharing,
Yeah,
what their experience is, what they're doing, how they make certain things work, or even about procedures. That'll be exciting to hear.
most certainly. Yeah, we'll continue to grow the podcast for sure, but this is a huge, great first step. We'll get this out to our students and help them with the interview process, and we'll keep going from there. But yeah, thank you so much for your support for Texas Laser Institute and all that you do for us. And Keith, of course, sends his very best, and I'm sure we'll continue to be in close touch, and hopefully the school will continue to be a great resource for your team.
Yeah, definitely.
Needs you might have.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you.
Wendy, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll
All
see you.
right. Take care. Bye.